Hello, welcome to a brand new video. One of the most defining theological debates in the Islamic thought revolves around the nature of the Qur'an. Is it the eternal, uncreated words of God, or is it a created expression of his eternal speech? The Athari and Ash'ari schools both confirm the Qur'an is the speech of Allah, Kalamullah, yet they diverge sharply on how this speech should be understood, both ontologically and linguistically. The Atharis, represented by figures like Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Ibn Qudama, and later Ibn Taymiyyah, maintain that the Quran is uncreated in every sense, and is truly the speech of God, Kalamullah, and not just a metaphor or a created expression of it. For them, speech is an essential attribute of God, inseparable from his being, and therefore cannot be created. They affirm that God speaks with letters and sounds in a manner befitting his majesty, without likening his speech to that of creation. In this view, when someone reads the Quran aloud or holds the physical mushaf, the paper and the ink are created, the words themselves is uncreated but revealed in time. Our recitations are uncreated, but our acts of recitation are created. The Ash'aris, following Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari, tried to reconcile the scriptural affirmations about God with philosophical commitments to divine transcendence and immutability, or tried to reconcile it with Greek philosophy, if you're being honest. They argue that God's attribute of speech, Kalamullah, is indeed eternal and uncreated. What we recite or hear or write is just a created expression. It's kalam lafsi, an eternal meaning that's with Allah, which is kalam nafsi. According to this model, God's speech exists eternally in his essence as a timeless, non-phonetic meaning known only to him. So when the prophets or angels convey that meaning in human language, it becomes a created articulation suited to human understanding. Thus the recited Quran, they call the Quran al-Makru, or the created Quran. So that if I say, Surah Fatiha, for example, they would say that's created, while they would say that the attribute of speech itself is not. And this distinction allows the Ash'aris to affirm both God's transcendence and his attribute of speech, while avoiding what they see as the anthropomorphic implications of attributing literal letters and sound to the divine essence. So who's right in this? When I say that I'm going to quote the Quran, I might say, Allah says in the Quran, I'm affirming that the Quran is the words of God. It's his actual words and not the speech of Gabriel, for example. Only Atharis can confirm this and not the Ash'aris. Ash'aris call the Kalam Nafsi, the Quran, or the attribute, or the eternal attribute, which is just the meaning, but the actual Arabic Quran is created. Furthermore, they deny that Allah speaks with letters and sounds, and this is part of the reason that they believe that the Quran is created. And you can extend this further. They don't believe that he speaks as an action altogether, rather that he creates speech outside of himself instead, and that his acts are identical to their effects. And this is like saying that if I turn on the radio and I'm the one who's singing because I turned the radio on, that just doesn't make any sense. This distinction comes from the fact that Ash'aris affirm divine timelessness, while Atharis do not. The Atharis believe that Allah can act in succession, or that he can go from speaking to Moses to not speaking to him. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal and other Athari theologians affirm that Allah's attributes of speech is eternal, that he always possessed the capability to speak, but his individual acts of speech occur by his will and his power at specific moments, and the act is not the same as the effect, and the action subsists in his essence, and therefore this is affirming the plain meaning of the text without distorting it. The Ash'aris, on the other hand, claim that anything that is temporal is necessarily created because of their Greek understanding or their Greek underlying assumptions of atoms and accidents, and that's way too complicated for this video alone. This distinction between the Atharis and Ash'aris is more than just academic hair splitting. It has real theological and practical implications. It shapes how one understands God's relationship to revelation, the Quran, and human engagement with it. For Atharis, affirming that the Quran is uncreated preserves the full majesty and reality of God's speech, and underlines the importance of adhering to the close literal wording of the text. For Ash'aris, on the other hand, interpreting the Quran as the created expression of an eternal meaning allows them to safeguard the divine transcendence and immutability, or the unchangingness, but it risks making the revealed word appear as secondary to the attribute itself. And at the end of the day, the effects of Greek philosophy over religion has been devastating, to say the least. the source of Islamic knowledge is the Qur'an and Sunnah, and not Plato and Aristotle. And that brings us to the end of this video, and hopefully that made sense to you. If not, please leave a comment below and I'll try to answer it to the best of my ability. And don't forget to like and subscribe as always.